Welcome back to Ronnie's Regal Reviews. Got some more movie talk this week. I don't know if you listeners know, but the Oscars happened over the weekend, so I'm going to talk about that. Every year I go to my grandparents' place with my brother and my dad to watch the Oscars, but because they have cable, and it's just nice to hang out. The ceremony itself was pretty great, especially in terms of hosting. Conan did an incredible job, and he was a huge breath of fresh air after years of the blandest man of all time, Jimmy Kimmel, hosting. All the presenters and their small gags were funny. Adam Sandler's small appearance was really great in Conan's opening monologue. Ben Stiller had a bit where he was presenting the Oscar for production design and the set was malfunctioning, and it for sure made me chuckle. The actual speeches were mostly good. Obviously, if you don't know, Adrian Brody's speech has been riffed on a ton for how goddamn long he took. And there was that one lady from the Emilia Perez team who started awkwardly singing at the end of her speech. And the team for animated short had a very poorly planned speech, but most of the speeches were great. Kieran Culkin opened the night with a very memorable and charming speech, which I can't really do justice by explaining, so I'll play a little clip of it here.
I want to tell a really quick story about Jazz. About a year ago, I was on a stage like this, and I very stupidly, publicly said that I want a third kid from her because she said if I won the award, she would give me the kid. It turns out she said that because she didn't think I was going to win. After the show, we're walking through a parking lot. She's holding the Emmy. We're trying to find our car. Emily, you were there, so you're a witness. And she goes, "Oh, God, I did say that. I guess I owe you a third kid." And I turned to her and I said, "Really, I want 4. And she turned to me, I swear to God this happened, it was just over a year ago. She said, "I will give you 4 when you win an Oscar."
And then later, the winners for live action short made a callback to his speech, and it was a really great moment.
To my producer and partner in life, Trent, I'm not having your babies because of this tattoo. But
Sean Baker got his chance to speak on stage 4 times, setting a record, and yet each time he had something new to say, and he just seems to have so much charisma and charm. Also, the winners for documentary short, the team on No Other Land, had a very important, relevant, and beautiful speech, and I recommend you all check it out. But anyways, the Oscar ceremony was a 7 or 8 out of 10, and now I want to talk about these movies. The Best Picture nominees is what I'll be talking about. I watched all 10 Best Picture nominees for the 3rd year in a row, and I'll review them in order from my least favorite to most favorites, starting with Emilia Perez, which I'll blast past because I already talked about it last episode. But in brief, it's a movie that tries to do a lot of things and fails at pretty much all those things. It's a 3 out of 10. It's nominated for 13 Oscars, and it doesn't deserve any of them at all. Even if some would be slightly more deserved than others, it ended up winning 2 of the 13, losing 11, which is pretty incredible. It won for Zoe Saldana for Best Supporting Actress, which admittedly isn't a terrible win, considering she was the best part of the movie. And it won for El Mal for Original Song, which is very dumb. But it's during a year where all the songs they nominated for Best Original Song were very bad. So, whatever. That's Emilia Perez.
Emilia Perez, for your consideration.
Past this point are movies that I feel are at least good. Everything but Emilia Perez is above a 5 out of 10. But of these, the one that I didn't care for as much was Conclave, directed by Edward Berger, who directed the All Quiet on the Western Front remake. I definitely enjoyed that movie more than his newest, but I'm not in love with either of them. This movie was nominated for Best Picture, Best Actor, Best Supporting Actress, Best Adapted Screenplay, Best Costume Design, Best Editing, Best Original Score, and Best Production Design. And I think it maybe deserves 2 of those at most. Right off the bat, the element that was immediately apparent was that the movie looks great. There was plenty of interesting and memorable imagery. I was a little mixed on the sound. Some of the sound effects were weirdly loud or distracting, but it didn't matter a whole lot. The music was very dramatic and had an implied suspenseful intensity that worked well in certain scenes in the middle when I was most engaged with the story, but at the start it seemed a little over the top and unearned, and at the end I was losing interest and the music felt forced. Especially when the music carries an implied importance on a scene that I don't understand most of because a sizable portion of this movie was in Italian, and there was no subtitles for some reason. Like, it wasn't a mess up on my part. I looked it up and they don't want you to know what they're saying in Italian. Some of it was understood through context, but there was a huge scene that is almost entirely in Italian, and I got the gist of it, but when so much weight is put on the scene through the music and the cinematography and the reaction to the characters, I shouldn't only get the gist. The stuff that was clearly presented was pretty engaging to me. The demonstration of how these cardinals treat the position of Pope as a crown to fight for, like war, was well done for me, and the unfolding mysteries were pretty interesting. But it wasn't paid off in a way that felt earned or fitting. There's an Afghani character who is the center of the mix of drama, and he seems to be the only one of the cardinals not caught up in the drama of this vote. And after one speech that was half an Italian, a group who seemed to be portrayed as not very respecting of privilege decided to vote for the nice Afghani man to be Pope. It felt very unnatural to me, even if the reveal at the very end and the meaning behind the reveal seemed fitting to the story and themes. All the performances were pretty great, and the unfolding mystery was interesting to follow, so I can't say I didn't enjoy this movie. It ended up being pretty good, even though I focused on a lot of the negatives, so 6 out of 10 for Conclave.
You should be careful, Thomas.
Conclave, rated PG.
Next up is A Complete Unknown, directed by James Mangold, who directed Logan. I very much preferred Logan to this movie. Now, this is another movie I reviewed on the show, so I'll speed through this one as well. This was nominated for Best Picture, Best Director, Best Actor, Best Supporting Actor and Actress, Best Adapted Screenplay, Best Costume Design, and Best Sound, and I don't think it deserves any awards for those categories. While I do like what Timmy does in this movie, his performance in Dune 2 is much more Oscar-worthy in my opinion. But in brief, this was another bog-standard biopic, although one with more effort than the average. So check it out if you're interested, but I would give it a 6 out of 10.
Like a rolling stone.
A Complete Unknown, inspired by the true story of Bob Dylan. Rated R.
I promise this is the last one that I've already talked about, but next is Wicked, directed by John M. Chu, who also made Crazy Rich Asians and Now You See Me Too. So a pretty crazy filmography. Wicked was nominated for Best Picture, Best Actress, Best Supporting Actress, Best Costume Design, Best Editing, Best Makeup and Hairstyling, Best Original Score, Best Production Design, Best Sound, and Best Visual Effects. And I would be fine with quite a few of any of those wins. Both main actresses were incredible in the movie, and the makeup and hairstyling was incredible. In short, this was just a great musical. Very well presented, just a few issues with the visuals and sound editing, but mostly a good time that I gave a 7 out of 10.
Wicked, rated PG.
Next up is The Brutalist, directed by Brady Corbet, who I hadn't known about at all until now. Brutalist was nominated for Best Picture, Best Director, Best Actor, Supporting Actor and Actress, Best Original Screenplay, Best Cinematography, Best Editing, Best Original Score, and Best Production Design. And I think it deserves nearly all of those. All the performances were incredible, the movie looked immaculate, and although there are scores I much preferred in the whole year, the Academy didn't nominate any of them, so I'm happy with the score win. The movie was 3.5 hours long, and it was a lot of content. There was a 15-minute intermission built into the movie, which was much appreciated. It really helped with the pacing. Despite the monster runtime, I don't know if I could say much, as I don't think I've fully processed it all. This movie takes some very surprising and disturbing turns, and throughout I was consistently engaged. Loved all the performances, loved the directions the story went, love all the characters, so this was an 8 out of 10 for me. Might go up or down with time. This movie puzzled me a little bit. I don't have much to say about it.
The Brutalist, in cinemas January 24th.
Now we're in the top 5. Starting off with the Best Picture winner, Anora, directed by Sean Baker, who made several other indie movies with cult followings like Red Rocket and the Florida Project. Anora was nominated for Best Picture, Best Director, Best Actress, Best Supporting Actress, Best Original Screenplay, and Best Editing. And not only did it win all but one of those awards, but I think it fairly deserved pretty much all those awards. This is a very simple movie. This movie stars Mikey Madison from Scream 5 and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood fame, and she plays a sex worker named Anora who ends up marrying a rich Russian man on a whim. Then once his father finds out, he sends his henchmen to fetch them and try to get their marriage revoked. It's a very uncut gems kind of movie with many long, stressful scenes and a very simple but winding and interesting story. The one thing about this movie was that I didn't fully get it. Like, I didn't extrapolate a meaning or a conclusion that made sense to me, but I was definitely very entertained. The scene where the henchmen are frantically trying to tie up Anora was truly an insane and hilarious sequence, while also being a bit nerve-wracking and disturbing. One of the henchmen was so damn funny the entire movie, and the dad actor and bald goon who was nominated for an Oscar were both also great. There's really nothing I didn't like about this movie. It was just very solid, and I wasn't mad about how many Oscars it got. And it was an 8 out of 10 for me.
Anora, rated R, written and directed by Sean Baker.
Next up is I'm Still Here, directed by Walter Sell, or Say. This was nominated for Best Picture, Best Actress, and Best International Feature, and I would be very happy with any of those wins. It only came home with International Feature, although I feel as though Fernanda Torres deserved the Oscar for Best Actress. This movie was nearly impossible to watch, although I did eventually manage to find it. I can't really tell you how, but I did get to see it, and I'm really glad I did. This is a movie that takes place mainly in the 60s about a family who is being targeted by the Brazilian dictatorship government, and the aftermath of the damage that they caused. Like I said, Fernanda was phenomenal. Her performance had such an insane range and was filled with small subtleties. All the kids were also pretty incredible. I really loved this one moment during the more modern time part of this movie, where two of the grown-up kids are discussing when they officially accepted that, spoilers, their dad had died. And the one girl says it sunk in when she was looking into the empty home before moving away from Brazil. And it immediately recontextualizes and provides more appreciation for an earlier scene in a brilliant way. All the technical aspects were incredible. This movie looked great. The cinematography was very purposeful and well done. The music was stellar. Not only the composed score, which heightened the tension perfectly without sounding cliche, but the soundtrack songs, the Spanish gems of songs throughout the movie, were all new to me, and I've since added them to my liked songs on Spotify. My favorite being E Preciso Dar Jeito. Sorry for my pronunciation.
Eu cheguei de muito longe.
The story was gripping, the presentation of this horrifying situation was incredible, and they captured this family's fear and bonding perfectly. I really enjoyed this movie, and it was another 8 out of 10.
Obstáculos na estrada, mas enfim aqui estou.
For your consideration, I'm Still Here, rated PG-13.
Next up is Dune Part 2, directed by Denis Villeneuve, who is one of my favorite directors of all time, Prisoners and Arrival being some of my favorites, and he's never been nominated for an Oscar in directing, which is crazy. But this movie was nominated for Best Picture, Best Cinematography, Best Production Design, Best Sound, and Best Visual Effects, and I feel it could have deserved all those and more. Everything that was great about the first Dune is just elevated even further in this new edition. The sound design is still amazing. Some highlight new improvements and additions are the watery, muffled noises inside Lady Jessica's belly, glimpses of Paul Atreides, played by Timothée Chalamet's future sister, and the sound design as they ride the worms, especially Paul's big moment, had such a neat soundscape. Those worm riding scenes were just so gripping in general. The cinematography was stellar. The opening scene was mostly colored in intensely vibrant oranges. Overall, the visuals weren't as varied with all the different biomes in Part 1, but that only gave this a more prominent sense of heat and warmth to the whole movie. The other very memorable visual set piece was the gladiator dome-type arena where drugged humans try to fight and kill the Harkonnen of Fade Rautha, played by Austin Butler, who by the way could have also been nominated. The entire scene is shot in a very bright infrared black and white visual style. It looked insane and unique and incredible. The sound was better, the visuals were better, the performances were maybe better, but most importantly, the story was better in my opinion. The first movie did a great job at setting up for this movie in a very psychedelic, vibey way, but the starting bits of the movie weren't the best in my opinion. This movie, on the other hand, really knocked it out of the park. All the themes of prophecy and false prophecy and all that played off really well in this movie. And even more interesting stuff about how, even if the prophecy is correct, it just worsens everything anyways. The propaganda spread by them has turned the Fremen into a hive mind with no individuality, following this white savior archetype. Before, early on, the story is also great to follow with Paul learning the Fremen way, and there's some really charming moments and funny moments with Stilgar played by Javier Bardem, with Lisan al-Gaib moments. Overall, this was simply a very impressive improvement and compelling continuation of the first Dune movie, and I give it a 9 out of 10. What?
This isn't over yet.
Rated PG-13, only in theaters, March 1st.
Next up is Nickel Boys, directed by Ramel Ross, who hasn't really directed anything else besides one other indie movie. Nickel Boys was nominated only for Best Picture and Best Adapted Screenplay, and I think it could have gotten both awards and much more. This is a movie about a kid who is falsely convicted of a crime, so he gets sent to a strange and very racist correctional academy, and we get glimpses of this kid's modern life while he's in his 50s or so throughout. Of course, the camera work was incredible. I don't know if you listeners were aware, but the cinematography was the most talked about part of this movie and should have definitely been nominated for it. Every shot is so impressive and creative as we follow the entire movie through 2 POVs. Every single scene is a POV shot, and that sounds a little weird to follow, but it just works. It just really works. The 4:3 aspect ratio is perfect for the story that we're telling and the feelings they wanted to evoke by the manner in which they told it. I love how everything feels so off and boxed in and nostalgic and dreamy to serve as a way to show that these are old memories. The small surreal moments, like when crocodiles show up out of nowhere, were all very striking. I love the bold editing choices with the slideshow montages. I was especially enthralled by a very disturbing scene where the main character is being whipped off screen, intercut with dusty black and white photos of black children. The audio was incredible. Not only was the music absolutely stellar, but the sound design as well. The breathy, dusty, strange soundscape they chose for the score was very well done and perfectly captured the atmosphere to pair with the bold visuals. The attention to detail in the sound design and environment also really tied the experience together. And also, I love the few soundtrack picks that they went with, especially the Ethiopian jazz track at the very end. Shout out to my Ethiopian jazz heads. So yeah, this was very, very great. Some very disturbing aspects and some very moving aspects, and I loved it. 9 out of 10.
Nickel Boys, rated PG-13.
Next up is my favorite movie up for Best Picture, and my second favorite movie of 2024, The Substance, directed by Coralie Fargier, maybe? Who had previously made a few other small movies. This movie is nominated for Best Picture, Best Director, Best Actress, and Best Makeup and Hairstyle, and I think they're all fully deserved. I would love more, but honestly, it's just so cool to see a grotesque body horror movie get so much acclaim in the first place. This is a movie about a celebrity played by Demi Moore who gets fired from her fitness television program because she's getting too old, essentially. So she turns to a black market type item that splits her life into bi-weekly segments of living as herself and living as a younger version of her. And if she doesn't respect that bi-weekly balance, her original self deteriorates. And by the way, I will spoil stuff in this movie. This movie is very loud and in-your-face and great use. The music is this very throbbing house score that serves the style perfectly. The visuals are incredible through every single scene. There's so much memorable imagery and so much meaningful and brilliant visual metaphor. The very loud, campy style is all laid out so perfectly so that the themes are taken so seriously and able to be executed so viscerally and relentlessly in that third act without feeling out of place. Every once in a while there's a movie that I just feel is screaming at me and I'm fully taking it in. Last time I really got that feeling was with Eraserhead, and I got that feeling again here. To me, this was a very transparent story of growing old and losing self-confidence due to putting all your self-worth into this industry of disgustingly portrayed businessmen. Before, as it becomes clear that Sue and Elizabeth are two entities, transforming into an allegory for a controlling mother trying to live vicariously through her daughter, which results in her self-image decaying. Eventually, Liz, played by Demi Moore, tries to terminate Sue, or metaphorically let go of her grasp on Sue, and her own intense relationship with her body image, before realizing she can't. This culminates into a fight scene, which is to me both a metaphor for Elizabeth's obsessive control of her daughter, literally destroying her self-image, shown visually by smashing her head into a mirror, while also serving as a heightened version of a literal fight through Sue's perspective, with her trying to stand up for herself, before ultimately realizing she can't. They both realize how symbiotic and toxic this relationship is, before the perspective of the film switches to Sue, as we watch her self-image slowly decay from putting all her self-worth into the eyes of these men as well. And the cycle continues. Holy, what a banger. A 9 out of 10 that has a strong chance of growing to a 10.
Have you ever dreamt of a better version of yourself? Younger, more beautiful, more perfect.
There's been a slight misuse of the substance.
Anyways, that's all I have for you today. Check out Ronny Reviews on Instagram. And before I let you listeners go, it's time for Ronny's Joke of the Week. What would you call my favorite Best Picture nominee if it were a movie about challengers? The Snubstins. See you next time on Ronny's Repugnant Reviews.
Hey, Ronny. Ronny?
Good reviews.
Fabulous reviews.
This is Ronnie. Make it good.
Suppose Ronnie could have been a
Reviewer.
It's Ronnie, all right.
Ronnie.
Reviews. Fabulous reviews.
And this is the best review we got.